Cultural appropriation or cultural appreciation? That is a question I personally often find myself asking myself, and it's one of those ongoing things in my mind as I just observe the world, the internet, in modern day society, in Western society. And the reason for that is because I kind of feel that, if I don't know if it's just me, but let me know if it's y'all as well, but I have a feeling a lot of us feel this way. Everything that's happened over the last couple of years has given us an opportunity to really understand more what's going on in the rest of the world, what's going on in that country. We're all connecting worldwide, etc., etc., way more than we were before. You know, even we were before anyway, but even more so now. We're so aware of what's going on. And so it's interesting to like kind of compare and contrast all the different perspectives from everybody's different angle to try and be like, oh, is that how you guys are seeing it? Now, the reason that I even made this video specifically is because I keep seeing these videos on like YouTube shorts of this dude. I don't know what his channel is, because every time I see him, I'm pretty sure it's always these, you know, like when they repost somebody else's video and I'm like, but who was the person? Tag the person. I thought we did that by now. Anyway, he has this video series where he wears like a cultural outfit from like one specific culture that's not his. So I think the first one I saw him wear was maybe Japanese, I think. And then he will go and ask people, like normal Westerners, right? What do you think about this? Do you think that this is offensive? And they'll be like, yeah, you don't have the right to wear that. This is offensive. You're stealing from somebody's culture and you don't know the meaning and all this stuff, right? And full disclosure, I'm thinking that I think along the same lines of some of those things as well. Because I feel like there was a line to it. I felt like there was, but now I'm questioning, and I'll show you why. Because then he would go to the actual people who originate from there, and not the people who come from somewhere. Like, there's a difference between the people. Like, there's a different, not like people are not gonna like. I'm gonna say this, and I'm so can you imagine the Lord made me this controversial? Anyway, there's a difference between Black Africans, Black Americans, and in my opinion, Black British as well. I've lived in all three of those different continents. I can tell you there is a difference between those groups of people, right? And so when you go back to the people from where those cultures actually come from, who are very in touch with that place, right? They don't find it offensive. They think it's great that people are celebrating their culture. They think it's awesome. And I already pointed out in previous videos that we have a tendency to pick and choose when we want to call out cultural appropriation anyway. And if you haven't seen, I've got loads of videos about cultural appropriation, blackfishing, racism. I broke down my 4 definitions of racism in a video as well. So check all those out to give you more of an idea as to how we got here. But, you know, people like those people don't mind in those other countries what they're doing. You know, we think of it as cultural appropriation, but they're actually seeing it as cultural appreciation, you know. And so then it starts to wonder, like, to me, like I was saying, that we're hypocritical. What's the word I'm looking for? We have selective activism, another thing I did videos about. But we have selective activism where we want to hold certain people to account for the fact that they've stole somebody else's culture or whatever, or misrepresenting it. But in other areas we want to turn a blind eye, you know. And one of the things I've talked about on my YouTube channel is how people will have an issue with somebody, say like Jessie Nelson, and call it blackfishing and, oh, we need to cancel blah blah blah, cultural appropriation. And on the flip side, you'll have the likes of the Kardashians, and Kylie Jenner is still selling out by whatever time, and black people are still really rocking with the Kardashians. And I'm not saying that anybody should or shouldn't do any of those things. I'm just saying that we can't be picking one side or the other. And it kind of almost seems like this issue is almost just like a Western issue. And it's because of everybody's feelings and experiences, because that's how we're at in Western culture right now. It's all about our feelings and our experience. And I think it's because that's how, if you're an enemy, you want to destroy someone, that's the best way to treat someone, because feelings are unpredictable. Feelings are easy to manipulate. You know, that's why the news loves to put you in fear, because it's a form of, like, you know, gaining control, whatever. But this whole cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation, I actually think some of the time people who are getting offended by the cultural appropriation, quote unquote, are people who are still wrestling maybe even with the culture that they come from. Let's say in the example of being a Black British person or a Black American person, you might be struggling with like what it's like for you to be a Black African, because you don't really connect as much, but you want to, but then because you yourself already feel like a bit of a fraud. Look at me going off the rails here. Yeah, and then so when you see other people doing it, you take it to heart, because someone's like, even others who are happy to, who are appreciating it, you know, they're appreciating it more. But then there's the other flip side of it, which is that there are actual things in society that are just true, you know, and that are just factual, as in factual, I don't want to use the word privileges, but benefits, let's say, with certain things. And for example, even if you just look at, and I'm using the Black community because it's the community I'm a part of, but this works for a lot of communities out there, right? As a Black woman, there is Black men generally, you know, are, I'm not even going to go into this. This is going to go into another whole thing. I'm going to go into another whole thing. Let's not go down that road. But you guys get the idea that the way that we feel about stuff, like for me, okay, I will use an example as a Black person. Like people are doing a lot of this like lip injections and this injection and that injections, and it's like, wow, that's interesting, because y'all didn't really seem to appreciate these characteristics before other people started to like kind of fake it within themselves. And that's actually true. I can tell you that's true, you know, because of being a Black woman and knowing the Black woman experience, having spoken with other Black women. And so there is actually a reason that people are upset about that. And sometimes it's these little things in society that we're not willing to address and give. And that's why I feel like we should spend so much more time listening to each other, trying to understand where each other's coming from, than trying to prove our own point. I think that will be like a real level up in society, because whatever the two sides of anything that you see, a lot of these things are, it comes down to that, you know, because with cultural appropriation, apparently a lot of people in the world think that it's actually really cool, and they like that you're wearing their stuff from their country, and they like that you're putting them more on the map. They like that. So it's like we're here making a kerfuffle thinking, oh yeah, we're doing it for Venezuela, wherever you're from. And in reality, the people in Venezuela are like, no, we love that. That's our culture. In fact, you even got the right one. You've got the right color. Like, oh, do you know what I mean? And people generally are so much more receiving around the world. And I actually noticed that because I love to watch these cooking videos where people go and eat around the world. Like when I say around the world, I don't just mean in Europe, because I'm sorry to say it, but for the people who come from the United Kingdom or the United States people tend to feel like the US is the whole world. And then British people tend to feel like Europe is the whole world. I'm talking about the real whole world. No shade, no tea. Keeping it real with y'all. Just helping you expand your horizons. And, you know, there's so much different stuff happening all over the world. So many different cultures. And generally cultures want to welcome in foreigners. They want to welcome and they want you to try what they're doing. They want to invite you because they're proud of where they come from. And so this like cultural appropriation issue that we have over here and like whatever in Western society, it's kind of like, it seems like it's just us, and it's and to me that kind of makes it almost so like almost not distasteful, but yeah, it kind of makes it distasteful, because it's like, well, but you've got so many more options in the Western world than in all those other places, and in all those other places they don't even have what you have in whatever victimhood status that you think you're in the Western world, you know. And that's where we're at. And I was watching a video the other day as well, a YouTube short of like, there was this white lady shouting at this Black woman about like, we need to fight for you to have a voice because Black people are depressed. And the Black woman's going, I'm not oppressed. I'm free. Don't tell me I'm depressed. And she was African as well, proper African. And she's like, I'm free. So no, you're depressed. And this is a white woman telling the Black woman that she's depressed. And as a Black woman watching this, I'm thinking, and you guys know I think for myself as much as possible, okay? I'm not perfect, all right? But I try. Also, thinking for myself doesn't necessarily mean anything. It just means that I'm really trying not to be, you know, I'm trying to just have my own thoughts. Anyway, I'm thinking, how do we have somebody, and this is because this happens to me, where people deny my experience as a Black person because they feel like they are a stronger ally for Black people almost than I am. And so the white woman was fighting with the Black woman to have a voice, but she was the one shutting up the Black woman's voice. Do you see how that works? And this is where we're at in society. That's why with all this cultural appropriation, cultural appreciation, you know what? I actually like, I'm going to be controversial. I'm going to say it out loud, okay? I honestly think that it's great that we're embracing each other's cultures. I think that's awesome. I think we have to do it respectfully, i.e. don't go around acting like you have any more understanding than anything else. Be respectful to the people and invest in that community. AKA, what am I saying by saying that? I'm saying maybe if you got like a normal food chain like Taco Bell and you like Mexican, maybe actually just buy from your local Mexican. Do you know what I mean? Do you get what I'm saying? If you want to say that you like Mexican, buy from a proper Mexican family. You know what I'm saying? Oh, you like Korean barbecue. Maybe you don't get the Korean style fried chicken and stuff they have like in supermarkets. Go to an actual, find a Korean, do you know what I mean? This is how we appreciate each other's culture, because you know what then happens? Then we're actually feeding back into all these cultures, and it's all amazing, and we're all living greatly, and we're all learning each other as human beings more than we're focusing on all of this weird stuff. And then it just benefits everybody even more, because then there's money going back into those countries. You're helping them. Now look at that, now you're having a positive impact on the world, something that we talk about all the time. And it's so funny, this is what I've noticed about the media, social media, and just society today, that we spend so much time thinking we know how to solve problems, identifying maybe that there's, I think a lot of the issues out there, a lot of the activism, there's some level of truth to why that needed to be brought up, or some level of change that needed to happen. But we become so obsessed, it becomes so much about our feelings, logic gets thrown out the door, and then we don't actually do something that's beneficial to solve that issue, you know. And that's actually a serious problem. That's a serious problem, because then we're actually a lot of times worsening the issue, rather than just speaking to each other as one another. But I do think a lot of people in society, I will just say this now, I can't believe I'm saying this on camera right now, but a lot of people are really just in a salty place for themselves. And that's what I think it comes down to. A lot of people who are really just a very in the extreme department of activism, they're just going through something themselves that they're working through, and they're not maybe working through it very well. And a lot of people are speaking, and I say this as somebody who does my best to do research outside of my own perspective. That's why I surround myself, the things that I watch, the things I consume, with people who look nothing like me, do nothing like me, fundamentally completely agree with everything I believe in, to give myself a sense of the world, right? But a lot of people, they actually are just coming from their frame of reference. It's like when you hear is the equivalent of somebody saying all Italian men cheat, and you say, why do all Italian men cheat? Well, you say, how do you know? They'll be like, well, because I've had 6 Italian boyfriends and they all cheated. And that's where people come from majority of the time. That's how basic the opinion level of what we're actually dealing with on social media is a lot of the time, because people are just going off of their one experience. Because the more you expand your experience and understanding of the world, the more you understand that everybody's got different problems. A lot of people might act or think in different ways than you might actually think. You know, there was a whole debate going on again on YouTube Shorts, where the Irish people who've moved to America versus the Irish people who had been in Ireland since things were crazy. Because for those of you who don't know, here's another bit of interesting information. Irish people in England actually used to be treated like black people and dogs. That's what they even used to have signs that say that on like pubs and stuff. No Irish, I think it's like no Irish, no dogs, no blacks, or something like that, basically, in whatever order they put it in. But so there was a debate going on that the people who are saying, well, you don't actually know what it's like, because the Irish were not seen as white. They weren't being seen as white. Do you know what I mean? That's another whole story. And there was a certain part in history, and I watched it, where half of all of Ireland moved to the United States, which is why Ireland is very strong in the United States, like genetically and stuff. These are the things that people don't talk about. These are the things that we don't know. These are the histories that show us that things are really just not as black and white as we think. And sometimes we can't just be all up in our feels because of something small that happened. You don't know. You don't know. You know, and so, yeah, that's what I've been thinking about. All this cultural appropriation, cultural appreciation. If I were to tell you where I'm at as far as what I think about all this stuff at this stage in my life, at this moment in time, I kind of just feel like it's a bit like, that's how I feel about it. Like, I'm like, I don't know if I really believe that it's a thing. Like, I know that's going to sound really controversial, because people have abused. Don't get me wrong, me saying that I don't know if it's a thing doesn't mean I'm ignoring the fact that people have actually abused cultures, because they have. But here's the thing, we've sat back and we've supported it. That's why I always bring up the Kardashians as first and foremost when anybody ever talks to me about cultural appropriation and it being crazy for me that I don't necessarily think it's a thing. Because I'm like, okay, so if it's a thing, let's entertain that theory, that hypothesis. Then how come you're letting this person get away and that person get away and that person get away? Because it's got something deeper. It's nothing to do with that. It's nothing to do with that. You've got a deeper issue there, and you're coming at me because I'm not hurt by the situation, because it's not destroying my soul that Kim Kardashian had cornrows or something. Like, okay, she did. Okay, somebody tanned. So what? So what? Is you being so, like, do you see what I mean? But anyway, I don't want to get too deep into it, though I say that and I've really gotten very deep into it. But this is kind of just the way that I've been thinking about a lot of stuff, and it's kind of what makes sometimes hard to even make YouTube videos, because there are so many opinions flying about and so many good reasons for why people think in a certain way or experiences that people have had. But certain topics, when it comes down to it, there's just, I don't know if that not every single debate has the same answer on the same subject. Do you know what I mean? Like, especially when it comes to things like cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation. Like, it's a case by case basis, you know, a lot of the time. But then also it can be manipulated. But it's just the world we live in, and I just think we've got to be a bit more open-minded to try and understand each other, spend more time understanding than we're spending trying to be understood, because it just sounds to me like a lot of us are just out here screaming to be understood, and that's all that's happening. And the only way we'd have some actual progression is for us all to say, you know what, I'm going to fight to be to understand you. I want to understand you. I want to study you. Like, this is what I do, people. When I don't agree with people, I just study them. Like, not in like a weird, like, You kind of way. You know, You, the freaking show on Netflix. Not in that kind of way. I mean, like, in a way where, like, what is it actually like to be in that person's life? Like, for real. Not what you heard, not the one person you encountered, not your 3 exes or something. You know what I mean? But that's just the way I think. I personally think that's actually real progressive thinking. I'm gonna go on a record and say that I think that's real progressive thinking, because that's how we actually, the more we try to understand each other, the more we will understand each other, right? Isn't this the point of all this love languages? Like, this is why when we say a lot of this stuff in society, I'm like, y'all don't mean it. Because if you did, everybody would be a lot more empathetic towards each other and a lot more understanding. But instead, it's all, everybody's pointing the finger at the next person, you know? And you wonder why the Lord says, take the plank out of your eye before you try and pull out the splinter in your neighbor's. Yeah, because you maybe need to understand, and maybe we all need to understand, because you can't help it, you know? And, like, you can't help it. Certain things you can't help. Like, to me as a black person, right? I can't help, there are places in the world where a particular group of people may have never seen a black person. And if, however they come across to me when I first meet them, they've never come across a black person. Like, what am I going to do about it? That does not necessarily make them racist. Do you know what I mean? I'm like the unknown. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's what I'm going to say for this video, y'all, because I'm talking a lot and I got a lot to say. I always got a lot to say. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like the video if you did like it. If you liked it, you gotta like it. Otherwise, how am I supposed to know? Please continue to think for yourself, y'all. That's my only advice. And exercise your free will. Because the Lord gave us free will. And if God gave you free will, ain't nobody else got the right to take that away from you. God bless every single one of you. And I'll see you in my next one.